The door closes with a heavy sound. Not loud, not fast, just final. Somewhere in the world, a man is sitting alone in a small room, counting the cracks in the wall, waiting for a knock that means everything is over. He does not know the time. He does not know the day. He only knows this place has many names: death row, condemned block, final corridor. And here is the truth that shocks most people. Where you are sentenced to die may matter more than what you did. Because death row does not look the same everywhere. Some prisoners wait in silence for decades. Some are locked in darkness. Some can speak to their families. Some are never touched by another human being again. And tonight, we step inside the places most people will never see. But first, there is one cell you must enter. The cell is small, 6 steps long, 3 steps wide. The light never turns off. The man inside has been here for 23 years. Every morning, guards slide a tray through a metal slot. No words, no eye contact. He is allowed outside 1 hour a day, alone, inside a concrete box with no roof. No trees, no sky you can see clearly. This is death row in one country. But somewhere else in the world, another man on death row wakes up to sunlight through bars. He eats meals with other prisoners. He can write letters, see his family, even work a job inside prison. Both men are sentenced to die. Their crimes may be similar. Their lives are not. And that is where this story begins. To understand death row, we must go back. Not to one crime, not to one prisoner, but to the idea of punishment itself. For hundreds of years, governments believed that the fear of death would stop crime. So they built places for people who were already condemned, places where time itself becomes a weapon. Death row is not just about execution. It is about waiting. And waiting can be worse than dying. In the United States, death row is often described as a slow time. Some prisoners wait 10 years. Some wait 20. Some wait 40. They live alone in small cells, locked inside for 22 or 23 hours a day. Meals are pushed through slots. Movement is controlled. Silence is constant. Many prisoners stop hearing their own voices. They talk to the walls. They count footsteps. They memorize the sounds of guards. Psychologists call this death row syndrome. The mind begins to break, not from pain, but from waiting. But even inside the United States, death row is not the same everywhere. In some states, prisoners can have radios, books, and limited social contact. In others, they live in near total isolation. Same country, same sentence, different reality. Now travel thousands of miles away. In Japan, death row is hidden. Prisoners are not told their execution date until the morning it happens. They wake up thinking it is a normal day. Then guards appear. They are taken away. Families are often told only after it is over. Prisoners spend years, sometimes decades, never knowing when the end will come. Every sound outside the cell could mean death. Footsteps in the hall, keys turning, a door opening. Many prisoners develop severe anxiety. Some lose the ability to speak clearly. Some stop sleeping. They are allowed very little contact with other prisoners. Letters are controlled. Visits are rare. Silence is used as punishment. Waiting becomes torture. In China, death row is different again. Some prisoners are executed quickly. Others receive a death sentence with reprieve, meaning execution may be delayed or changed later. Information is tightly controlled. Families often struggle to learn details. International observers report that prisoners can disappear from the system without public notice. Records are limited. Transparency is rare. What happens inside is hard to confirm. But one thing is certain. Death row here is fast, quiet, and hidden. Now move to Europe. Most European countries abolished the death penalty long ago. Death row no longer exists. But history remembers what it once looked like. Cold stone cells, public executions, long waits. Europe's rejection of death row came after wars, mass death, and deep questions about justice. Many governments decided the state should never hold the power to kill. Instead, prisoners receive life sentences. The cell doors still close, but not forever. In the Middle East, death row conditions vary widely. In some countries, prisoners may wait years. In others, execution follows quickly after sentencing. Legal systems differ. Cultural beliefs differ. Some prisoners are held in standard prison blocks until execution. Others are isolated. Family visits may be allowed or completely forbidden. Again, the same sentence leads to different lives. Then there is Africa. In some countries, death row prisoners wait for decades as executions stop, but sentences remain. Men grow old inside cells meant for the young. Some countries have not executed anyone in years, but still keep people on death row. Prisoners live in legal limbo. Not alive, not dead, just waiting. Cells are often overcrowded. Resources are limited. Healthcare is scarce. Hope fades slowly. Across the world, one truth becomes clear. Death row is not a single place. It is many worlds. And the biggest difference is not the cell. It is time. Time stretches differently on death row. A year can feel like 10. A decade can feel endless. Some prisoners mark days with scratches on walls. Others stop counting altogether. Birthdays pass unnoticed. Parents die without goodbye. Children grow up through letters. Some prisoners choose to fight their cases. Others give up and ask for execution. Yes, some ask to die because waiting becomes unbearable. But here is where the story takes a turn. Because not everyone on death row is guilty. Across the world, people have been released after years, even decades, of waiting to die. New evidence, broken trials, false confessions. In the United States alone, dozens of death row prisoners have been exonerated. They walked out of cells they thought they would never leave. Some could not handle freedom. Some suffered deep trauma. Some said prison felt safer than the outside world. The wait had changed them forever. And this raises a dangerous question. If death row conditions can destroy the mind, if mistakes can happen, if where you are sentenced changes how you suffer, then what exactly is justice? Is death row punishment? Or is it something else entirely? Late one night, a former prison guard spoke quietly into a recorder. He had worked death row for 15 years. He said this: "The executions weren't the worst part. The worst part was watching them wait." He described men who stopped eating, men who screamed at night, men who stared at walls for hours. He said some begged guards to talk to them about anything: weather, sports, the sound of another human voice. And then he said something that still haunts those who heard it. There was one prisoner. He smiled on the day he got his execution date. Why would someone smile when they are told they will die? That answer lies deeper inside death row. And in the next chapter, we will enter the minds of the condemned, comparing how waiting, isolation, and hope shape prisoners across different countries. Because the real punishment of death row may not be death at all. And once you understand that, you may never see justice the same way again. Imagine waking up every day knowing it could be your last, not in a philosophical sense, but as a literal, scheduled reality. This is the daily existence for thousands of people on death row around the world. What does it actually feel like to live under a sentence of death? Let's go beyond the headlines and courtrooms to understand the profound psychological and physical experience of waiting. For most, the journey begins not with a dramatic final walk, but with an overwhelming sense of isolation. In many countries, death row inmates are held in solitary confinement. Picture a small concrete cell, often no bigger than a parking space, for 23 hours a day. Human contact is minimal, reduced to a tray of food pushed through a slot or the brief exchange with a guard during a rare escort. This extreme isolation isn't just lonely, it's a well-documented form of psychological torment. Our brains are wired for social connection. When deprived of it, anxiety, depression, and even psychosis can set in. The world shrinks to the four walls of the cell, and the mind can become its own prison. Life on death row is a paradox of crushing routine and agonizing uncertainty. Every day is nearly identical. The same wake-up call, the same meals, the same stark view, if there is one at all. This rigid structure is meant to maintain order, but it also grinds down the human spirit, erasing individuality. Yet, woven into this monotony is the constant, nerve-shredding question: when? In some justice systems, like in the United States, appeals can stretch on for decades. In others, like Japan, prisoners may be given only a few hours' notice before their execution. Imagine living for years, even decades, with a sword of Damocles hanging over your head, never knowing which sunrise will be your last. This constant state of suspense is a unique form of mental anguish, a life lived in limbo between existence and oblivion. The body itself bears the burden. Chronic stress floods the system with hormones like cortisol, leading to a host of physical ailments, heart problems, digestive issues, and a weakened immune system. The limited space and lack of activity cause muscles to atrophy. The body, like the mind, begins to break down under the sheer weight of waiting. Then there's the emotional toll on families. They too are serving a sentence of sorts, caught in a cycle of hope and despair with every appeal and legal challenge. Visits, if allowed, are often conducted through thick glass, a heartbreaking reminder of the barrier that separates their world from their loved ones. They grapple with social stigma, financial strain, and the emotional exhaustion of fighting a battle against time. Their pain is a ripple effect of the sentence, extending far beyond the prison walls. Ultimately, the experience of waiting on death row is a complex and deeply human story. It's about more than just crime and punishment. It's about what happens to the mind and body when life is stripped down to its most basic element, the passage of time, with a known but unscheduled end. It forces us to confront difficult questions about justice, humanity, and the nature of hope in the face of absolute certainty. Exploring these experiences doesn't mean forgetting the victims or the crimes committed. This raises a deeper question. If death row destroys the innocent as well as the guilty, if waiting itself causes permanent damage, then what is the real punishment? Is it death, or is it the time before it? A prison doctor once said something that shocked investigators. He said death row prisoners aged faster than others. Their hair turned gray early. Their bodies weakened. Stress became illness. Hope became pain. Waiting became poison. Yet even inside these walls, people adapt. Some write books. Some draw. Some memorize entire libraries. Some make peace. Others never stop fighting. Appeals become lifelines. Every court date brings hope and fear, because winning means freedom, but losing brings the end closer. Then there are those who choose a different path. Some prisoners give up appeals. They ask to be executed, not because they want to die, but because they cannot wait anymore. Courts struggle with these cases. Is it choice or desperation? Is it justice or surrender? Across the world, governments defend their systems. They speak of law, order, and deterrence. But critics ask a harder question. If death row conditions vary so widely, if suffering depends on geography, then is the punishment fair? In one country, death row looks like isolation and silence. In another, it looks like shared cells and prayer. In another, it looks like decades of legal limbo. Same sentence, different lives. Near the end of his career, a senior judge admitted something quietly. He said, "We focused so much on the crime, we forgot to look at the punishment itself." Because death row is not just about execution. It is about how long, how alone, and how uncertain the wait becomes. And now, the most disturbing truth emerges. Studies show that for many prisoners, the moment of execution is not the worst part. The worst part is the years before it. The waiting, the wondering, the slow erasing of self. In a sealed report from an international human rights review, one sentence stands out. Death row conditions may cause irreversible psychological harm, even without execution. That report was never meant for public eyes, but its findings changed the way some countries viewed the death penalty forever. And in the final chapter, we will confront the biggest question of all: if death row itself is a form of suffering, if mistakes cannot be undone, and if the world cannot agree on how to carry it out, then why does death row still exist? Because once you see what happens behind the last door, you may begin to wonder who the punishment is really for, and whether justice survives the wait at all. The last door is quiet. It does not slam. It does not shout. It waits. Across the world, death row still exists, even as countries argue about whether it should. Some governments say it is necessary. Some say it protects society. Some say it brings justice to victims. But inside the cells, prisoners ask a different question. Why am I still here? In the United States, death row continues, but executions slow down. Appeals take years. Cases move slowly through courts. Prisoners grow old. Some enter death row as young adults. Now they walk with canes. Their crimes happened in another lifetime. Some no longer remember the faces of the victims. Some barely remember their own. The sentence stays the same. Time does not. In recent years, several U.S. states stopped using the death penalty. They did not empty death row. They left people there. Men sentenced to die remain locked in death row cells, even though execution may never come. Lawyers call this death row without death. Prisoners call it something else, a mistake that never ends. In Japan, public support for the death penalty remains strong. Executions continue quietly. Officials say secrecy protects order. Critics say secrecy hides suffering. Families of prisoners often find out after the execution is complete. No goodbye, No warning, just a notice. Some families learn through the news. And the silence continues. In countries where executions stopped completely, death row still leaves scars. Former prisoners speak of years they cannot recover. They struggle to sleep. They fear closed spaces. They fear open ones too. Freedom feels unreal. Waiting changed them. And then there are the numbers. Across the world, thousands of people sit on death row today. Most will not be executed soon. Some may never be. But all are living inside a sentence built on uncertainty. Governments debate policy. Prisoners count days. Supporters of the death penalty often speak about justice. They talk about punishment matching the crime. They talk about closure. But families of victims are not all the same. Some want execution. Some want answers. Some want the waiting to end, for everyone. One mother whose child was murdered said something that surprised many people. She said, "Watching him wait for years didn't heal me. It kept the wound open." International courts now examine death row conditions more closely. Not just executions, but the waiting, the isolation, the mental damage. Some courts have ruled that long waits on death row may violate human rights. Others disagree. The world remains divided. And still, mistakes continue to surface. Wrongful convictions uncovered decades later. Evidence re-examined. Witnesses proven wrong. Confessions challenged. Every time a person is cleared, the same question returns. What if the truth had come too late? In one case, a man was released after 30 years on death row. He walked out into sunlight and said nothing. Later, he explained why. He said words felt small after so much silence. Death row forces society to look at itself. At fairness. At power. At patience. It asks whether punishment should be final. Whether waiting is justice. Whether certainty exists at all. Some countries choose life without parole instead. Others hold on to death row, changing methods, but not the sentence. Each choice reflects what a society believes about crime and punishment, about mercy and control, about whether mistakes are acceptable. A former judge once said something simple. He said, "The law can sentence a body, but time sentences the mind." Death row proves this every day. Across the world, cells remain locked. Lights stay on. Footsteps echo in hallways. Some prisoners wait for execution. Some wait for appeals. Some wait for nothing at all. The last door still stands. Heavy, quiet, patient. And as long as it exists, the question will remain, is death row about justice? Or is it about how long a human being can endure waiting? Because the world may disagree on punishment, but one truth is shared everywhere. No one leaves death row unchanged. Not the prisoner, not the family, not the system that built it. And once you understand what happens behind the last door, you realize the sentence does not end at death. It begins long before it, and it stays with everyone who touches it, forever. Thanks for watching. Kindly like, comment, and subscribe.